how romantic love is powerful, but also vulnerable, right? There's something about it. Being in a relationship with that other person, when there's a romantic element to it, it is so unique. But it comes with a kind of vulnerability that we have to navigate in this. And what I love is there is an actual book in the Bible, Song of Songs, that we're going to look at here in a moment, that the entire book is written to what it is to be in, or what romantic relationships are like. Even in chapter 1, they're so enamored with one another, but they also reveal this vulnerability. What if the other person isn't attracted to me the way I'm attracted to them? And you know what? There's this thing about romantic love, that there's always these unique vulnerabilities that oftentimes we don't experience in other relationships. And so then poem 2 kicks in, and poem 2 kicks in. And now they begin this dating relationship. And it is just poetic line after poetic line, describing their delight and their longing and how attractive they are. Like all of these, all the things you would think of in a passionate romantic relationship. But there is this theme that really comes out here. And it actually comes out in chapter 1. In fact, it will come out in every single chapter. It reoccurs over and over and over again, which means we need to pay attention to it. And really, it gets at the crux of what I want to talk about here this morning that I think is really, really important. And it is this. You see how the human heart longs for connection. And friends, I really mean this. There is a part of the human heart, your heart, my heart, that longs for connection. And it just comes out in this. And romantic relationships, whether it's dating, whether it's early in your marriage, whether you've been married a long, long time, we all feel this. We all have this desire for connection. In chapter 2, verse 8, I want to read to you just a little bit of a line that it kind of expresses this. In chapter 8, the woman says this, look at this if you want with me. It says, "Listen, my beloved." And it's like, I think I hear him. I think I hear him. And there's always this movement toward throughout all of these poems. It says, "Listen, my beloved, look, here he comes." And this just captures this kind of romantic love. "Leaping across the mountains, bounding over the hills." He's like a little rabbit or a deer hopping along, coming towards me, right? And when you think about, right, and we laugh, and you should, because there's like this goofiness to it. Just like he's bounding along because he wants to find, his beloved, right? And we think about this, and you think about young people, and you watch them like when someone that they're really attracted to walks in the room, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, what do I do?" And they act funny and goofy. Ever remember a moment where you act funny and goofy? Like you walked over to the couch all cool, and you're just like, "I'm just going to swagger over there." And I'm sure if any of you were there and you would have watched me, you would have been like, "He is so making a move, and it is so see-through. We know what he's trying to do," right? But here's the thing. If you're a young person here this morning or watching this, and you're like, "Are they making fun of me?" Here's what I'd say. I'm making fun of all of us, because this never goes away. And so then we get to poem 3, and this is where they get married, and they start their wedding, and this is their chance to start building a life together. Have you ever thought about, and I'll say this, depending on where you're at in this, I remember a time when I just thought, if someday I can pull this all together and I get married to Angie, it'll be smooth sailing, right? It's just right. All the hard stuff is in the dating and figuring this romance stuff out. And once once we're married, then it's just going to be easy, right? And maybe you're not married and you're looking forward to marriage or something, and maybe you believe that. I hate to disappoint you, but it's not going to get easier, is it? And some of you that have been married for a long time, maybe you'd go, "Yeah, I used to think that. I really thought that." And now it's like what happened, right? It just, those highs and those lows are there. I think there really was a part of that where I felt like, once Angie and I get married, it is like we have crossed a finish line. No, right? I mean, we're only in chapter 3, and it's an 8-chapter book, right? And they get married. There's a lot more to happen in this. We get to chapter 4, and it's their honeymoon. There's a whole chapter kind of dedicated to their honeymoon, because this is about romantic love, and it's passionate, and it's everything and then some that you think it would be, right? But then we get to chapter 5, and this is her responding, and he's kind of made a move toward her, and this is how she responds. It says this, verse 2. I slept, but my heart was awake. Listen, my lover is knocking. Open to me, my sister, my darling, my dove, my flawless one. Use that term on the next date that you go on. Just, when you make dinner reservations and you say, yes, I'm here and my flawless one is here. We're here for dinner. Just try that out. Okay. I digress. Where was I? Let me find it. Okay, I got it. Open to me, my sister, my darling, my dove, my flawless one. My head is drenched with dew, my hair with the dampness of night. And listen, there's this little switch here. I have taken off my robe. Must I put it on again? I have washed my feet. Must I soil them again? My lover thrust his hand through the latch opening. My heart began to pound for him. I arose to open for my lover, and my hands dripped with myrrh, my fingers with flowing myrrh, and on the handles of the lock. I opened for my lover. But my lover had left. He was gone. My heart sank at his departure. I looked for him, but I did not find him. I called him, but he did not answer. There's going to be these moments where we're going to miss one another. And what I love about Scripture on this is that it includes this. We get to feel the disappointment. In fact, you go on and read it, and she goes outside, and she's talking to the watchman, and where's my beloved? And it's just like, and we've all had these moments where there is this miss, and it leaves us in a different kind of spot, doesn't it, right? It leaves us in disappointment, or it leaves us in frustration, right? I thought we were going the same direction in life, and now it feels like you want this, and I want this. You've changed, or what happened to you in all of this? And the other thing it can do? It can leave you wondering, is there something wrong with me? Why don't they desire me, right, the way I thought they would? Or and it can really turn us inside out. And here's why. Because we were made for connection. It's interesting. There was a long-term study done out of the University of Texas by a researcher and professor named Ted Hudson, and he did this long look at causes for marriages failing. And he looked at compatibility, and he looked at what are the issues that are marriage killers. And one of the things that surprised so many people out of this research that they did was that increased conflict over issues had almost no effect on wrecking or blowing up a marriage. Marriages, he found, could survive just fine, even with lots of conflict. Compatibility, when we think about compatibility, do we love the same things? Are we trying to achieve the same things here and there? Do our personality profiles all line up or whatever? Very little to do with marriages failing. The biggest thing that caused marriages to fail was a decreasing sense of connection. In fact, when he went to go and measure all of this, when marriages would reach a certain point of a decrease in connection, he could almost predict within 4 to 5 years that marriage would be over. Because, as Song of Songs points out, we need connection as human beings. So, here's what I want to do this morning. I want to offer two real practical ways for taking a step towards connection. Here's the first one, and it's available. Just available. And when I say available, right, I want you to think about the passage for a second, right? And that little poetic story that happened. Part of what created this thing where they were missing is there's a moment where one person was making a move in some way and the other person just wasn't available, didn't respond to the words that were being said, or in one case, just wasn't even present in there. But when we think about available, I don't want you to think about it's just like, okay, I just have to physically be present, right? Because it's so much more than that, right? We don't get off by just saying, well, I showed up. I'm here, honey. We're connecting, right? No. It's deeper than that. When you think about availability, think about it in this way. The thing that is needed on the other side of this is for your partner, for your beloved to say, I know that you're there for me. Because see, we'll have a connection need, and in a romantic relationship, there's a part of this that wants to know, are you there for me? Right? Are you there? Are you available to me emotionally? Because there's going to be moments where this person more than any other person is the one that we want to turn to for certain moments that we've got an emotional need. There's something that we're trying to process. There's something that we feel, and we want to be able to turn to them. It's us saying, when you need me, I'll be there. I'll be accessible. I'll make my heart accessible to you, whether it's a conversation or whether it's just to hold your hand, whether it's to be beside you in a particular moment. When someone feels worried or stressed out or insecure about something, are you a safe place for them? One way to think about it is this. Being available means making your heart and mind accessible to the needs and cares of your beloved. So here's the next thing you have to do to be available, is say, whether I'm right or wrong about that, I'm going to set that aside for a moment. And I'm going to make a different assumption about maybe what is happening here in this moment. What if this is a moment of desired connection from my soulmate? And it seems so little and funny, like going to get the grocery pickup. But I set that aside for a second. And all of a sudden I started to hear her words differently. Like she was wanting to spend time with me. She was missing me a little bit. And I'm like, well, what do you do? It's like when the love of your life is like, I miss you. And I'm inviting you to spend some time with me. And you're just like, that's not a good moment, is it? Right? That's a moment where you can miss. But the second I made myself available, all of a sudden I started to read it differently. And you know what? She started to read it a little bit differently. Because here's what it does. In those moments where you set your frustration aside and you're like, okay, what is my partner, my beloved, needing in this moment? It says, I care about you. I'm with you right now. I'm available. If there's something I'm missing that you need, I want to know. That's what it is to be available. If you just begin taking I promise you, some little steps to just go, okay, where am I at right now? I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to try and figure out maybe there's something with my spouse, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, this person that I care about deeply that's other than this. You want to know that. And I promise you, it will begin to change things, which sets up the second thing that I want to talk about here this morning. And this is responsive, right? So once you make yourself available, right, I'll be there for you. I'll figure out what's going on in me, and I'll set it aside long enough to try and understand you. Now you can take the second step, and it sets you up to be able to respond in a different way. And here's the thing. If you put these two steps together, being available and responsive, those two steps together will move you toward connection constantly, and move you towards connection sometimes in really powerful ways, in little ways, but ways that just keep bringing you back together. So once you have taken some steps of being available, now you can start to become more responsive. And and I don't have time to get into it in Song of Psalms right now, but one of the things that you see with this couple is they start learning more and more what it is to be responsive to the other. Instead of just focusing like on their needs and their love and their passion and everything, there's like this maturing that takes place. There's still all of this passion, but there's this thing where they start seeing the other person a little bit more. Their passion becomes a passion that responds more and more in all of this. And it sets you up now to be responsive. And when you think about responsive is now, it's literally responding with care and concern. What is the thing that I can do in some way that lets you know I value you? That lets that person know that you value the connection in all of this. Being responsive means this. Let me give you something quick here. Being responsive means tuning into your partner with a sense of care and affection that says, I value you. I matter to you. And so often we don't see it until we become open enough and receptive enough, available enough to kind of set our issues aside for a little bit and understand the thing that matters more than any of those issues is, I want her to know she matters to me. But there have been so many times in our marriage, I didn't communicate that or express that. And we were like this. But there are these simple things of being available and responsive that start bringing you back to connection. I want to read just the last part of the last chapter and close out with this. And I want you to think of this as like this couple, as they grow old together and their romance matures and they see love in a little bit different way, in a stronger way because of what they have built. And it says this, starting in verse 6, it says, place me like a seal over your heart. See, that's someone who is available, someone who's responsive. Place me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm. For love is as strong as death. Its jealousy unyielding as the grave. It burns like blazing fire, like a mighty flame. Many waters cannot quench love. Rivers cannot sweep it away. If one were to give all the wealth of one's house for love, it would be utterly scorned. And it's just this testament that there's a kind of love when it's brought back again and again to being connected. It is strong. So, think about how you can take a step towards connection.